what's going on, guys? Welcome back. Today I am doing my inaugural how to be a hacker in 2020 whatever series, right? So it's 2025. We're getting into the year, right? It's the second day. So I always wait till after the first, or try to, so that way everybody gets New Year's out of the way. But I want to talk about how do you become a hacker in 2025, because the industry changes year after year after year, right? How to become a hacker 10 years ago is way different than how to become a hacker now. And so I want to kind of give my steps of how I would become a hacker, but from if I had no knowledge, no experience, right? If you're new to the channel, I've been a pen tester for a long time. I've been a hacker for over a decade. And so there's a distinct difference, and I want to talk about that as well. And I also kind of want to talk about how can you get into the field, right? Because today's landscape is just much different than when I got in. And so I want to talk about what you guys can do, what you guys should do, what you shouldn't be doing, that type of thing. So if you're new to the channel, please hit that sub button, hit that like button, and let's go ahead and start talking about it. So first things first is, what is a hacker? And I get this a lot because I see all these types of hackers in our Discord. We have a Discord and a Patreon that have thousands of users that are great, but we see all different scopes of what their goals are, right? And reality is, this is where I sit, right? White hat hacker. They're ethical hackers who are authorized to test. That's what a pen tester is, right? I'm authorized to test anything that I touch. I am not doing anything illegal. I would never do anything illegal. And everything I touch is 100% I have permission, right? Black hat hackers, also known as crackers, but nobody really calls them that anymore. At least I haven't heard it in a long time. But they do the opposite. They do unauthorized access to computers with intent to cause harm, steal data, or disrupt services. So they're doing stuff that's illegal, and they're doing it, without any sort of permission and any sort of authorization, anything. Then you have gray hat hackers. These are the people that operate in that gray area. If you've ever seen the videos where people are like, hey, I hacked into a scammer's whatever camera, and you can, someone tried to scam me and I hacked them back or whatever. That's a gray hat hacker. What I mean by that is they're still doing something that's borderline illegal or illegal. They might not do it for the reasons, their reasons might be they think are just or whatever, but the reality is they're still doing something right there on the line, or it's basically illegal. I stay away from that. I don't at all go into that realm. So we see this a lot. A lot of people, hey, let me just mess with my buddies, but I have skills over here. That's gray hat hacking, right? Because you're messing with your buddies, but you might be breaking the law and you don't realize it. But like it says here, they don't intend to cause harm. But they're still doing something probably illegal. Then you have red hat hackers. These are described as superheroes of the hacking world. I've never heard that, so maybe they are. They target black hat hackers, right? So these are hackers that hack the bad guys, right? They target the black hats to disrupt their activities or retaliate against them. Again, I consider this more of a gray hat because you're still doing something illegal. If someone steals a bike from you, you can't go into their house and steal that bike back, right? If you do that, it's still a crime. So if somebody steals a bike from your friend, you can't break into their house and take that bike. That's still a crime. I understand the mentality of this is, I want to stop these bad people. If you've ever seen the Sean Ryan, huge shout out to Sean Ryan if you've never seen his podcast, but he had a hacker on there, the #1 hacker on Try Hack Me. And, what he's doing is that red hat, right? But he's not attacking hackers. He's attacking child predators and things like that. And the reality is, do I agree with his cause? 100%. But he's still doing something that could violate the law and could get himself into trouble or get those people off if they don't do it correctly. So understand that that's why I operate directly in the white. I don't touch any of that other stuff because there's a lot of legalities and things like that that are very complex. Now, then you have blue hats. They're external security researchers invited by Microsoft to find vulnerabilities in their software. Today, the term is used more broadly to refer to hackers who are employed by organizations to test their security systems. So it's like working for the man and testing their systems, right? They focus on defensive measures. So these are basically defenders that understand hacking, and they aren't going to sit there and do a full pen test or anything, or network pen test or web app pen test or whatever, but they're going to test the security just to see and try and defend against it. Then you have hacktivists. These are people that you see a lot as well on social media. These are hackers who use their skills to promote political or social causes. So these are someone that, maybe I disagree with, whatever this group's doing, so I hacked into their systems and that type of thing. They think they're doing it for a better cause, but the reality is, again, you're still playing with fire there. You're doing something you shouldn't be doing. Even if you think it's for the right cause, it still can be illegal. Then you have state-sponsored hackers. These are the ones working under the governments, okay? So these are ones that they can be employed to improve national security or to engage in espionage and things like that and sabotage against other countries. So those are the types of hackers we're going to talk about right here. White hat hackers, and there might be a little bit of the blue hats here as well, but that's it. We're not talking about any of the other groups. If those are the groups that interest you, feel free to go watch another video. It's not my interest to help people like that. Nothing against some of those, each to their own, but it's not what I'm going to do. So the biggest thing is, what do you need to get to this point from nothing, right? You're fresh out of high school or whatever, or you're fresh out of college. The biggest thing is you have to have good foundations, good fundamentals. And this is the thing that people skip so often. You're going to see so many people, especially if you come out of college, you might graduate 100, 200 people, whatever it is the college is, and even more than that. But you come out of college, you all have a cyber degree now, and then you're going to come out of that college, have that cyber degree, and you're going to go try to apply for a job. Well, guess what? Every other person in your class is going to apply for the same job because you're all in the same area. Guess what else? They all have the same resume because you guys learned how to build your resumes in college. So you all have the same resume, you all have the same skill sets, you all have the same everything. So you have to stand apart. And unfortunately, that's the landscape we live in right now with cybersecurity, is the jobs, typically, there are more skilled people than there are for positions. So what that means is you're going to have to be the best to get that position, right? So the first thing I want to point out before we talk about the steps is this is not a year-long process. This takes a very long time. The number one thing I recommend you get before even trying to get into cybersecurity is some real-world experience in IT. If you refuse to do that, like a lot of people, I tell people this advice all the time, and they always say, well, I'll just go take an internship, or I'll just go, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but I see it all the time. These people go take that internship. It's maybe a couple months, whatever. Then they get cut for the internship, because it ends, and then they try to apply for jobs, and they're like, a year later, they're like, hey, I still can't find a job. Well, it's because you're applying for jobs that you're not qualified for. Cybersecurity is a specialization of IT, not the other way around. So keep in mind that you need to have some foundational experience. So the first thing with the foundation is you got to understand operating systems. So the biggest thing is, I see all the time people, and I have a group of books here, and these books are ones that I've read over the years that I think are really good. And if you are interested in what my top 10 books or top 5 books are, it's on the Patreon. I have a Patreon top 5 hacking books. But you can see the first thing that I really want to talk about is learning the operating systems. This is where it all starts, right? And Linux is the most common operating system for servers, typically. Windows is really changing that, but at the same time, Windows is the operating system for the hosts, for the people, right? So you have to know both. You just have to, especially with hacking tools being written mostly for Linux. So you really need to learn Linux. This here, and I didn't click on it because you have to log in. All these links will be in the description, but this here is a course by Linux, or by Kali Linux, that is free for students. Okay, so if you're a student, this is a free course to learn Kali Linux. Now, if you're not a student and you don't want to pay, because I think this is like $700 for the year or something for unlimited access to all of them, this is the one I recommend. Linux Basics for Hackers. Okay, it's a great book. It's very simple, very easy. Teaches you. I mean, you could read this in, honestly, probably 2 days, maybe even a day, and you could be off and running. Now, that's not going to teach you everything you need to know about Linux, but it's a good start. And the thing is, you need to understand Linux very well, because you're going to have to understand it when you hack into a system. So if you're doing a pen test, or even a web app or pen test or network pen test or whatever, you're going to hack into a system. If it's Linux and you don't really know much about Linux, you're basically just going to be sitting there and go, okay, I hacked into one system. Keep in mind, enterprise infrastructures are thousands of systems. So what that means is now you're just sitting there and you don't know how to spread, right? Which is necessary as a pen tester. So learn Kali, or it doesn't matter if you learn Kali Linux, excuse me, but learn a Linux operating system. Debian preferably, but doesn't matter. If you learn one Linux operating system, you can figure out the rest, I promise you. The other thing is Microsoft. Learn Microsoft's operating system. Microsoft has amazing documentation. Go through it. And some people will argue it's not that good, the documentation, that's fine. But for how complex their operating system is, you can find almost anything on it. Yes, you can learn PowerShell and all that stuff, and that's great, and you need that. But for now, learn the operating system. Understand what registry keys are. Understand what a domain controller is. Things like that. Start understanding those underlying concepts, because if you build your knowledge on those foundations of, okay, I really understand how Linux operates and how Windows operates, the tools come easy, right? Because what's going to happen in your career is, as you become more and more involved in cybersecurity, is one tool or something will stop working because someone figured it out. And then now what? Well, if you know how to manually do these things, you can build your own tools on top of this stuff. You don't need to rely on other people's tools. The other thing is, if you just rely on tools, again, these tools come and go quite a bit. The only real constant tool has been Metasploit, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But there's been others, but Metasploit's really the one that stood the test of time, and it's because they change with it. That's about it. So the other thing is computer architecture, right? You need to understand how computers actually operate, and the reason you do this is because it'll help you understand when you're doing buffer overflows and memory attacks and things like that. You need to understand how it works. So there's a great book, How Computers Work, $20, really good book. Again, this will be in the description. The other recommendation I have is go take A+. I guarantee you, there will be some pen tester that is watching this video that goes, that's the dumbest advice because A+ is such a stupid cert. I agree. I don't like A+ as a cert because it's so simple that it doesn't hold a lot of weight. But you don't even have to go take the test. The books are cheap and the content is there. Go take A+ and actually read the content, and you will understand how computers operate, right? So when I say go take A+, if you're already learning the material, why not go take the cert? Yes, is it going to help you get a pen testing career? No, it's not, but it's another thing to add to your resume. So why not go get it? That's my opinion on it. If I'm going to study for or not study for a cert, but if I'm going to study material, why wouldn't I go take the cert that corresponds with it? So, but the reality is, how computers work, the A+ material, all that stuff, it's very good at just teaching that bare basic foundational level. How computers work is going to get more into memory and things, where the A+ is going to talk a lot more about the hardware, but there's 2 tests of A+, so take them both. And just know that this, so far, if you're really diving into the operating system, if you're really diving into both operating systems, focus on one at a time. But if you're really diving into the operating systems, if you're really diving into how computers actually work, those types of things, then you're already looking at the first probably 3-4 months right here. You need to really dig in. The other thing is to understand is that the reason hackers are so good is not that they are smarter. It's not that they are better than somebody. It's not that they are just more adept to it. It is they literally understand systems better than the people that are implementing them. So what does that mean? That means you might have a hacker that does bug bounties, and they only do WordPress, and they do all the WordPress bug bounties, and they just get money all day long, right? And that's a great idea. But guess what? You take that same hacker and you go put them on another system that they're not familiar with, and they're not going to hack into it right away, right? So understand that it's a system better than the person implementing it. Meaning, If I want to hack Microsoft Windows, I have to know it better than the people implementing it. When I say better than the people implementing it, people get scared off by that. They say, well, how could I know Windows better than Microsoft? That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying think about who's implementing it. A company is putting those policies in place, putting those procedures in place, putting those GPOs and all that stuff. So a company is putting all that Microsoft security in place. They make mistakes. That's where you come in. You come in because you find the mistakes, and that's where you get in. So understand that. Okay, now the next thing is programming. A lot of people say, can I be a hacker without programming? You theoretically could. You could just use pre-written stuff, but you need to at least, at bare minimum, be able to read code and manipulate it a little bit, because there's going to be a lot of scripts, a lot of tools that you have to be able to edit to be able to use. Okay, so one of the tools I have is automate the boring stuff with Python. Now, the other tool I'm going to show you guys that I recommend is right here, Python Crash Course. It is by Eric Mathes, Matthes. This is a great book. It's pretty thick. Again, these are really they're really big text and some pictures and stuff, so you could probably read this in a couple of days. But Python Crash Course, and then take that and then automate it, or add automation by automate the boring stuff with Python. Okay, so that is what this book is for, is up after you read the Python Crash Course. Now, the reason people use Python a lot is it's command line. You can just do it on a lot of systems. It's a lot of hacking tools are written in Python. It's a very good language for hacking. You'll need to know some basic other ones, but Python's a great one. The other one is Bash. Now, there's a couple of ways you can learn Bash. First thing, and this is not me trying to sell my own stuff necessarily, but on the Patreon and on Discord, I sell a Linux basics course. So if you want to learn Linux and Bash, both of them are in that course, and it'll teach you a little bit about each. And they're for very beginners. So if you have any questions, or you want that course, feel free to put in the comments. I'll send you a link. You can purchase it if you'd like. But the biggest thing is Bash. Learn how to Bash script. There's so many resources out here. Let me see if I can find the one that I had for you guys. The link had changed since I'd used it. That's why. Okay, here we go. So here is the GNU Bash manual. This has been around for a long time. Okay, and what this is basically exactly what it says. It is a document that tells you how to use Bash. What is Bash? Bash is the shell that Linux uses typically, and I say typically because there's other shells, but you can write scripts, tools, everything in Bash language, and it makes it very, very automated, very, very nice, and it's something you got to get familiar with if you really want to be serious about hacking. Now, the next one is JavaScript. This is the one I read, helped me out a lot. And by the way, guys, most of these books are you can get on digitally. I want a physical book guy. So here it is, Learn Java the Easy Way by Bryson Payne. And this is a really good book that helped me a lot. Helps me quite a bit with learning Java. And the reason you need Java is because you need to understand how web apps and things like that interact with each other with the client side and server side. And that's what Java is typically written for. So we got Python, Bash, and Java. That's the bare minimum. That'll give you enough. You might say that's a lot, right? Again, hacking is not something that you should be doing day one. It's something that you spend years building up knowledge and understanding to get into a role that is truly a pen tester or hacker, right? With that said, the last book I'm going to show you, at least for, I'm going to show you two more books, but this is the last one for the topics. PowerShell for sysads. This is a great way to learn system administration type work, which you can then apply as a hacker if you want with PowerShell. So this is the Microsoft I was talking about. You should learn Microsoft. These are all great books. This one's by Adam Bertram. Again, there will be links in the description. And then once you learn scripting, bash scripting, and things like that, this is a really good one. 101, or no, it's not 101. I'm sorry. Wicked Cool Shell Scripts. Okay, this is by Dave Taylor and Brandon Perry. Again, these are all books, and the reason I chose these books is these books are a little bit older, and guess what? They still all apply. That's why these are foundations matter, because these books will still all apply to what you're trying to do because the foundations are all the same. So understand that you're gonna have to do a lot of work here if you really want to be a pen tester. If you want to do it in 2025, these are the things to start on, right? The next thing is you're gonna need to understand networking. You need to understand networking principles, protocols, practices, all that stuff. Again, here's a book for that if you're interested. And some of you might say, well, there's a lot of books here, so they're expensive, or it'll add up. But the reality is, it's going to take you a while to get through each one, right? So you're going to have plenty of time. The other thing is, you can take all these books. You don't need these books. These are just good books that explain things. What I mean by that is, you can Google, research, do all this for free. Just understand that these are the resources that are readily available that you could just all one-stop shop for each one. So this one written in 2016, but it is a good book. Now you can see it's got one bad review, or 44% bad reviews, but most of it is probably because they say it's outdated. The reality is, really all you're trying to learn here is the very fundamentals, right? You're trying to learn the sorry, I was reading that, but you're trying to learn just how networking works. Networking hasn't changed. Now, have some of the protocols changed? Yes. Has IPv6 changed it a little bit? But for the most part, networking is the same as it was before. So once again, you can read a book like this, but I recommend go get Network Plus or CCNA. CCNA is going to be better, but you're already learning networking. Let's knock it out. Let's get that cert for it too, right? The other thing to take in mind is, as I'm talking about all this stuff, right, understand that if you just go through my list and go boom, 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 and just try to knock them out, what's going to happen is by the time you get to where I'm at now in the steps, you're going to forget the first part, which is just the operating system level stuff. So what's going to happen is you're going to brain dump all that. This takes years of repetition. So what you need to do is, as you're going through each step of what I'm saying, also be going back and refamiliarizing yourself with the fundamentals that you learned before. You're building a foundation. In order to do that, every day you got to learn about those foundations, and every day a little bit more, and then eventually, because you're still ingesting all that stuff every day, it becomes second nature, right? It becomes where you don't have to think about it anymore. So computer networking is a must learn. Okay, now then you have firewalls. So you have Cisco Network Academy. This is a big one. It's been around for a long time. You can see they have a lot of different ones here, but they have Python Essentials, Networking Basics, all that stuff. The Networking Basics is good. Operational System Basics, again, these are good. I told you there's a lot of classes and stuff. You don't have to read the books. Here's some courses for you, and they're free. Okay? They're free. I can't say that enough. They're free, right? Here's Linux Essentials, right? What did I just talk about? I talked about Python. I talked about networking. I talked about operating systems, Linux. Here's all that. I talked about computer basics, introduction to cybersecurity. These are all great courses, but look at the times, right? 70 hours, 12 hours, 25 hours, 30 hours. Think about that time in actual time, right? If you work a 9-to-5 job, you're working 40 hours a week, right? Well, that means it's going to take you weeks to get through this, even if you did it 8 hours a day, which would be a lot. But understand, it takes a long time to learn this stuff. So Cisco Network Academy, here you go. Great tool. The other thing, Cisco Packet Tracer is a tool that allows you to learn networking, and it's really, really important because you need to be able to do hands-on keyboard stuff for this. So when you're going through and you're learning about the operating system, you're using a computer to learn about it, right? So get on that computer, look at your operating system, go through it, get your hands on the keyboard and physically see what you're looking at, right? When you're learning networking, make sure you're using something like Packet Tracer or GNS3, which is, I have a right here. GNS3 allows you to simulate real world networks, right? The difference is they actually, I will say they emulate them, not simulate them, meaning they will have real systems in place versus, so it has a little bit more stand-up. Packet Tracer is a standalone application. So there's a lot of different options here, but you need to learn those networking and firewall and all that stuff. So the protocols and everything else. So once you have those are your bare foundations, right? Now you understand networking, you understand how the OSI model kind of layers itself, you understand the operating systems, you understand how to code a little bit, some scripting a little bit. You're starting to get that a little feel for how computers operate, right? And keep in mind, this is still on a small scale. You haven't even expanded that to an enterprise network yet. Now you can start learning a little bit of hacking and the tools. So one of the best things you can start learning is something like Wireshark. So this is just Wireshark's documentation. So Wireshark, fundamental to most IT jobs. You may not use it for like help desk or something like that, but any system administrator, network admin, pen tester, anything has used Wireshark numerous times. And what it's used for is it captures packets and allows us to read them raw, hex, or whatever, right? We can actually read the data as it crosses the wire, which is really nice because it means that we can actually see exactly how things operate. If you're ever sitting there and you're going, man, I wish I knew how that talked to that, Wireshark can do that for you. That's the big one. The other one, Nmap. So this is Nmap's documentation. Nmap is your scanner for pen testing. Now, are there other scanners out there? Yes. The thing I see most commonly confused is people think that if you just run a basic Nmap scan, that tells you all the vulnerabilities that you have. That's not reality. The reality is you need to understand a lot more than just Nmap, but from a foundational perspective, you need to learn Nmap. If I were you, if I'm someone that wants to learn, really dig in, guess what? Run Wireshark, capture the Nmap traffic, and you can visually see what's happening. You can go back and analyze and see, oh, this is how Nmap works. This is how it's doing this. This is what it's doing, right? That's what old school hackers used to do, is we used to tear things apart, basically kind of like a mechanic on a car, and start really looking under the hood and saying, oh, I see how that works, right? Because back in the day, yes, the internet existed, but all these resources that I'm pointing out, they weren't there yet. Okay, next one is Burp Suite. Now this one, it's a web app scanner, but it's not web app, but web vulnerability scanner, and it also is a web proxy, so it captures traffic and you can manipulate it and all that stuff. Really dive into Burp Suite once you're more familiar with the web app stuff and once you're more familiar with everything. That's why I don't have a resource for you, because you just want to use Burp Suite's website, but you want to really understand it before you get into it, or else you're going to be kind of struggling. Then you have Metasploit. This is Metasploit's free online course. I really recommend it. Again, this is OffSec, so this is their Metasploit Unleashed course. Metasploit, if you don't find useful, because I've seen a lot of people in the comments say like Metasploit's a script kiddie tool or whatever. The reality is Metasploit is probably the greatest hacking tool ever invented. I will say it right now. I don't know any tool that has stood the test of time and done what Metasploit has done. It's made hacking save so much time. So I don't really know anyone that's going to top it, but maybe there will be. But the reality is, if you're using Metasploit and you're going, I can't use it in a real world because it's, it gets caught, or the vulnerabilities it has in there aren't not accurate, aren't they're all old or something like that, whatever, you're using Metasploit incorrectly. Metasploit is extremely useful even today if you know how to use it. So the reality is, make sure if this is after all your foundations, right? This, honestly, it might take you years to get to this point, and that's fine. Hacking takes years to get into the industry, right? Because the skill ceiling is so high right now. But take this course if you want, right? So there you go, Metasploit Unleashed. Now we're talking about courses. So now, what are some of the resources that you can use once you're familiar with all these foundations and fundamentals? How can I get myself, okay, now I have a good baseline. I'm ready. I'm confident. How do I get into hacking, right? Well, there's a handful of ways. One of them, try Hack Me. Everybody's probably heard of it. If you haven't, go through my channel. 80% of it's probably Try Hack Me. Try Hack Me is a great learning source for learning new cybersecurity fundamentals and concepts. Hack the Box. Hack the Box is less user friendly, but allows you to have virtual labs that you can hack into and you can actually mess with. Then you have courses like TCM Security, has practical hacking, ethical hacking, those types of things. So you have many courses out there after that, but those two open the door for you to just be able to Hack the Box and Try Hack Me, just hack into machines, right? Then you have VulnHub. VulnHub is a resource that you can download the vulnerable machines, and then you can use them if you want. But keep in mind, with the VulnHub, you're going to have to host them yourself, so it might be a little bit less appealing to you. All right, so now that we have all the information and the knowledge, how do we take that information, knowledge, apply it to get real world experience? So now we can start offering us resumes and start applying for those jobs and things. Well, there's a lot of different things you can do. One of them that most people do is CTF competitions. I host one at the end of every year. We just got done with ours. There's all kinds of them all over the world. Try Hack Me does them. Hack the Box does them. Some of them do King of the Hill, which is everybody against one. There's all kinds of CTF competitions out there. Those are great, fun games that hone in on certain skills and allow you to, if you do well in them, you can say, hey, I won this CTF or I whatever. And so that's a little bit snippet on you can put on a resume, right? Bug bounty programs, HackerOne and Bug Crowd and all that. They are great resources for you to start hacking, finding bugs for companies legally, ethically, and then building your resume saying, hey, I found 5, 10, 20 bugs, right? That means, hey, I'm a decent enough hacker that I was able to locate some vulnerabilities and I added value to that company. Okay. Now, labs and simulations, this is where VulnHub comes in. You can take labs from VulnHub, download them. DVWA, which is damn vulnerable web app. There's all kinds of them out there, but they are basically web apps that you host that you can then hack into on your own machine and not have to worry about going online or anything like that. The other thing is the freelance, right? So a lot of people do freelance. What can you do? Well, you can figure out where your skill sets lie, right? Am I good enough to do vulnerability scans? Am I good enough to do awareness training? Am I good at this? Am I good at that? Whatever. And start offering that to companies, smaller companies, right? And building a resume. Start going door to door. Sell yourself if you need to, right? Those are all things that people nowadays, when you think of a hacker, what do you think of? You think of a guy behind a computer that's never coming out, and he's not communicative. He doesn't feel comfortable in those. Well, I'll tell you, the best hackers are the ones that can talk. Why? Because the ones that can communicate effectively add more value than even the most skilled hacker that's behind the scenes. I'm just going to tell you that right now. So the other thing to keep in mind is those will build real world experience, but there's a couple of things that you can't just go learn. And those are things that are going to take you to the next level and rocket your career faster. The first is the hacker mindset. I cannot teach somebody, so I can teach anybody to be technical. I can teach anybody these skill sets. Anybody. Someone off the street, I could teach this skill set. They may not be very good at it, but I can teach it to them. And they will be okay. The problem is you can't teach curiosity and you can't teach problem solving. So I cannot teach someone to be curious enough that when something stops working, when something is implemented, when a new tool comes out, to be like, man, I want to know how that works. I want to take the code apart. I want to look at it. I want to figure it out. I can't teach that. You can't teach that. That is not only curiosity, but it has to be passion. And if you're not passionate about cybersecurity, you're not going to like it. I'll just tell you now, you're going to waste years of your life, hate your life, and then you're going to leave. That's just the reality. You have to be passionate about it. And it's just unfortunate because we're in an age where there's so many people that are passionate about it that it saturated the job market. And now the people that aren't passionate hate it because they're stuck. They can't go get other jobs because passionate people their skills are getting upgraded. And the people that aren't passionate have been doing it for so long that they're like, Jesus, I don't want to keep learning the same or new stuff over and over and over and just be bombarded with the stress and all this stuff. But that's the reality is if you're going to get in this career, if you're not passionate about it, be prepared to be, it's a long career, right? The other thing is adaptability. Think about 5 years ago, the AI craze that happened 3 years ago, whatever. Think about how much cybersecurity has changed since then. If you haven't been in the industry, it's changed dramatically. Every tool now has AI integrated, right? So every tool from an enterprise standpoint. And so understand that you have to either go, okay, I'm going to learn AI very well in depth and learn how to secure it and be really good at it, or you're going to get left behind. And this happens all the time in cybersecurity, right? Cybersecurity 10 years ago didn't exist in half companies. Then all of a sudden it started to become legal and obligatory and all this other stuff. And then it's like, okay, now we get on board. And so it's like you have to become whatever the market tells you have to become. If you're not going to be adaptable, you're going to struggle, right? And then the last thing is, this is a big one, the ethical compass, okay? You have to understand when you're an ethical hacker, pen tester, white hat hacker, you have to understand you cannot toe any line in any way, capacity, shape, form. If someone comes in my Discord, and you can ask anyone in my Discord and vouch for it, if someone comes to my Discord and asks for anything, even they just hint towards this is weird or unethical, 100% banned, gone, I don't want to talk to you. I will never help somebody that even is showing weird activity, right? Even uncomfortable activity. I will not help somebody because you don't know what their intentions are or what they're doing. Same thing with you. If you go, hey, I just learned how to hack Wi-Fi, I want to hack my neighbor's Wi-Fi. The second you cross that threshold, you are no longer someone that has integrity and no longer someone I would ever want to work with in this skill or field because of the amount of trust and permissions that you have at a company. And that is why the ethical integrity and moral compass is the number one thing in this industry, in my opinion, because once you get to a certain level, you have access to everything. I mean, everything. When you're a pen tester, you could take over the entire thing. And should you? Right? That's the other thing. Should you? Right? So you have to have that ethical compass, because if you aren't sure, or if maybe you're like, yeah, I probably shouldn't, but I can prove a point here, whatever. Anything that goes through your head where you're doing something that crosses that threshold, 100%, I never want to work with that person again. So just understand there's a lot with that, but that's the reality is ethical and integrity is huge. Okay. Now, next thing we're going to talk about is soft skills. You want to get your career up faster? Here's how you do it. Effective communication. Number one skill in hacking. Number one skill. In my opinion, communication beats any technical ability any day of the week. There's a saying, and I can't remember who said it, and I apologize because there's a quote out there, but a good pen test with a bad report is less valuable than a bad pen test with a good report. And that's 100% true. Think about it. If I give you a report, but you can't understand what's going on in it, or it's convoluted, or it's not making a lot of sense, then you're of no value to me. I wouldn't hire you again. Even if you're the most technical human being and you figured out everything, every vulnerability in my system, and you're the best in the world, why would I hire you again? I can't use the information you're giving me because you're not communicating it effectively. The other thing is with cybersecurity, you're going to be in front of a lot of big people briefing them because you're the technical SME. You're the one that needs to understand it from both standpoints, from a high level and a low level. And you need to say, here's what happened, right? If you want to progress. If you want to just be behind the scenes, that's fine, but just understand that there's a cap to where that goes. You have to have communication, soft skills to get past that cap. The other thing is teamwork. I see a lot of people in IT and cyber specifically that they hyper focus and they work by themselves and only by themselves. That's fine, but understand there's a cap to that. Again, because what's going to happen is when you get to pen tests and stuff like that, just for time constraints, it doesn't make sense to make a pen test 8 weeks because you want to dig in and charge the person a ton of money when you could get 3 or 4 guys, do it in a week, move on to the next one, do it in a week, move on to the next one, right? So you're going to have to work as a team. You have to. In any industry, you're going to have to work as a team. So build up your team working skills because it's going to be important. Then lastly is time management. I see all the time people underestimate their time. What they do is they will be like, oh, I'll get to that. And then they go do something else because that's not due for a week. A week goes by, the day before, they're like, crap, I'm out of time. And now they're scrambling and they're missing deadlines and da da. Your time management has to be so good in order to really excel in today's industry because there's just too much at stake with some of these cybersecurity things, especially if you're working not just pen testing or hacking, but if you're working for a company like the blue team or the blue hackers, like we said, the blue hats, where you're working for a company, doing it for the company, you could find a vulnerability or a flaw that could be exploited an hour later. So if you find it now, you can stop it. So understand that there is a lot at stake sometimes millions, sometimes billions of dollars. So if you're not prepared for that type of stress environment and things like that, it's a big consideration to think about. Now, the other thing is I see a lot is we talk about the ethical considerations, but the legal, right? Understand that there is a lot of legal boundaries even when you work inside a company. So always get permission. Always get permission, written permission, signed by an appropriate authority. Don't have just some random person at the company sign it, right? And you'll notice I didn't talk about any certifications except for just, hey, if you're going to study this content, get the certification. Security Plus, CEH, OSCP, all great certs. Do with them what you will. But the way this industry is changing, here's what I recommend. And I recommend you go through the job postings of what your goal is, because you need to have a goal. Whatever your goal is, look at those jobs and get certs that those jobs require. The reason I'm saying that, and I'm not telling you what cert to get, is because it changes so drastically and so fast, right? CPTS for Hack the Box came out like 2 years ago, maybe a year ago now, I can't remember. Everybody and their mother started talking about it. No jobs care about it. So everybody was getting this cert and saying how it's such a good cert, it's so good, so blah blah. And all these kids over here got it because people were hyping it up. And then every job was like, I don't care about that cert. So don't go off of what influencers, including myself, content creators, anything are saying. Go through the job postings of the job you want, right? The career you want. Go through those job postings, take what their requirements are, what the general consensus is that you're seeing, and focus on that. Don't focus on what content creators are selling you, because understand, Hack the Box, guess what? They have content creators. Try Hack Me, guess what? They have content creators. Do you think that they're not going to push their own stuff? Obviously they will, right? So, okay. Now, lastly, we're talking mainly about hacking here. So make sure you specialize. So once you get to a certain point in your career, because IT, again, should be your foundation. You should start in IT. Pivot into hacking if that's what you're interested in. And once you get into that career, specialize in what you're going to do. Is it going to be web app pen testing? Is it going to be network pen testing? Whatever. Find what yours is. The reason is because as you specialize, you can get really good at that. You will never get better than other people if you're trying to spread yourself too thin. You have to focus, right? Then the couple last things we'll do is you need to get really good at networking. And I don't mean networking as far as like subnets and VLANs and stuff. I mean networking as in get on LinkedIn, get your profile set up, join professional organizations like ISACA and things like that. Go and actually start adding cyber professionals, working with people, contribute to GitHub repositories, do things that engage you in the community, and go to conferences and stuff like that, because those are the things that will get you visibility in the community and you'll be able to actually progress a lot quicker and take jobs that you feel more comfortable with because you know this person. So I trust that the job I'm taking isn't some crappy job. Find mentors in the industry who can say, here's how I did it. Here's how I did it, because everybody's journey is different, right? Wherever you're located, whatever industry you're in, whatever, find people that have done what you're trying to do. Don't necessarily mimic them, but say, hey, what steps work for you? Apply them the way that you know how and make them work in your favor as well. And understand they probably also have lessons learned, things that they tried, didn't work, things they hated, that type of stuff. And try to make sure you implement that too. Don't repeat mistakes. There's no need to. Now, last thing I'm going to say, and then, because this is a long form video, but the last thing is you need to avoid burnout, and you need to avoid it early, because I just covered a lot of stuff you need to learn. Personally, I think this should take you years, not a year. But I know somebody's going to watch this video and go, I can knock all this out in a year. That's fine, but you're going to still struggle because you have no experience. You need years of experience. And so understand that if you just cram all this knowledge in and then you keep doing that, you're going to burn out. You're going to have no balance in life, meaning you're not going to be able to have a work-life balance. You're going to struggle with hobbies and friends and family and all this stuff. And then you're going to get burnt out and you're going to hit a wall and you're going to struggle. So find your balance, whatever that balance is for you. Your balance might be that you work yourself to the bone. That's what you want. That could be. I did it for years and I was burnt out and I didn't even know it. And it was what I wanted to do in that time frame. In my early 20s, that's what I wanted to do. So I accepted that, right? And it led me to where I am, and I'm happy I did it. But I wouldn't work like that now because my goals are different. My priorities are different, right? So my work life changes. So understand your balance and what it looks like for you. And then again, last thing I'm going to leave you guys with is make sure you're passionate about this job or about learning IT and cyber forever, because it's a career that's going to continue forever as something you need to learn. It's not going to be something you're going to learn for a while, then sit on your butt for a couple of years. And if you do, you're just going to keep getting left behind, because the industry, as you can go look at any posting, the industry is filled with cyber people and students and things like that. So if you're not the best, you're going to keep getting left behind. So you have to keep working and you have to keep grinding. And yes, I understand you don't have to technically be the best every single time, but you have to keep putting yourself up there, or what's going to happen is you're going to take a job, you're going to sit static, and everyone around you is going to start progressing, and you're going to stay there because now you're behind. You have no skills to match what they're doing, and you're going to say 10 years goes by and you're going to go, now I want that promotion, and it's going to be like, too late, sorry, because you don't have the skill set. You've set a precedent for years that you're not going to work at it. So talked for a long time, guys. Hopefully in 2025 we figure out what makes you guys hackers, what you want to do, how you want to do it, and hopefully this helps guide some people and give them a little bit of resources, a little bit of guidance. Again, everyone has to find their own journey. Don't do what I say word for word. If you do, you'll probably be okay, but it'll probably be a struggle because things might change. This video a year from now might be completely irrelevant, right? But this is what I recommend as of today going into 2025. So I wish you guys luck. Happy New Year, and hope everybody is successful this year. Thanks, guys.